Welcome back to Two Bald White Guys. I'm Pete.
And I'm Damien.
What, hi, Dame.
Hi, Pete.
Have not talked to you in a long time. You were on vacation. You were in paradise.
Mm-hmm.
How was it?
Other than the travel, it was fantastic. You and I should add up the number of miles we traveled in our various trips.
I just went to South. I just went to Sarasota area, and so that was not that big a deal.
Oh, well, I went a little farther than that.
Best food you had there. Hello, Jason Brown. Best food you had there.
Do Mai Tais count?
If you chew on the pineapple, yeah, they do.
Yeah,
Andy. Hello,
it was
Andy.
awesome. Yeah, I had I had a couple very average Mai Tais, but there was one that was just delicious.
Rick Swink weighs in. Danza, everyone, it's good to be back with you. Dame, I got to be honest, last night thinking about the show, it had been a while. It has been a while. It feels like it's been a while. It's only been 2 weeks, but 3 weeks for you.
Yeah, between not doing the show and the news that I do independently outside of this, I was like, man, I hope I know how to talk to a camera again. This could be rough.
Kristen's off today, so I thought she was here today, but she's off. So good for me for not knowing when people are on or off. Hello, Sarah Renfro. Good to see you, Reverend. All right, Dame, on the show today. There's this awkward but understandable moment where a loved one comes to you while they're living and says, "Hey, would you consider being the executor of my estate when I've moved on to post-retirement?" And the natural inclination is to say, "Yeah, of course. Yeah. I would do anything for you."
Yeah.
We want to pump the brakes on that idea. Today, we're going to explore why, if you're the wrong person to say yes to that, you're going to mess everything up.
Yeah.
Big time.
Yeah. Have you had the pleasure of filling that role yet?
No. But I know a couple situations. I actually 4 where I will be.
Yeah.
4 households.
Wow.
4 households I will be. So that's a good time. I know that you have once.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so I will lean on you during that segment to help us understand. Dame, you came up with a little bit of a game, although I don't know how fun it's going to be.
Yeah.
And it sort of goes back to my high school philosophy and strategy around academics. What's the least thing you can do that is passable in your financial life? What is the minimum level of commitment and effort? And so we're going to walk through that. Did I capture that okay?
Yeah, I think that was great.
Okay. Do you just want to get cracking, or we got other things to do? Did you see any dolphins or sharks or?
You know what? I don't think I saw any aquatic sea life that was notable.
I saw a dolphin swimming like 20 yards behind Ted.
Really?
Yeah. I thought it was a shark at first, and I was like, am I going to have to get out from under this umbrella and take off these jeans? And I'm just kidding. I wasn't wearing jeans at the beach. And then I was like, oh, it looks happy. It's a dolphin. So even if it wasn't a dolphin, even if it actually was a shark, he's fine.
He can swim. He's fine. Just poke him in the eye.
I did yell shark, though, and I was arrested. All right. Can I say Florida, Gulf Coast, Florida, Sarasota, Bradenton, Anna Maria. Dude, there's so many birds, like just crazy looking birds. I saw bald eagles daily.
Did you stand up and cover your heart and recite the Pledge of Allegiance every time you saw a bald eagle?
Oh, you bet your buns I did. I cut my shirt into a tank top and saluted, and I wooed. I picked a favorite NASCAR driver every
Jeans
day.
became jean shorts.
Hey, jorts. Yeah. The Mai Tai that I was drinking turned into a Bud Heavy. Like, it was an American moment every day.
Now you're talking.
There's so many birds. And then we got back here to Naptown. We landed at the airport. We're driving home. We don't see a single bird. And I'm like, man, I didn't realize how much birds meant to my life until you leave Florida.
The government's using birds to spy on people.
Did you participate in totality?
I mean, it's like 99% totality. It didn't get perfectly dark. It got pretty dim, like evening,
Yeah.
dusk type, but we didn't get the full show.
So we were right in the path.
Yeah.
You guys were outside the path, right?
Yep.
So we got the full show. Much cooler than I thought it'd be.
Yeah, you were a skeptic.
Oh, yes, I was. But I will land here. Sir, I would not have driven 30 minutes to go see what I saw, although it was spectacular.
That's an interesting take. It was amazing and spectacular, but you wouldn't have traveled for it.
But also, that's kind of my concert theory.
That's true. Yeah, you didn't have to worry about parking or traffic or anything. You just stepped outside, threw some glasses on, and
The best part was when the sun came back, it kicked down the door like a Return of the Mac. It was like Jesus coming out of the tomb, Ric Flair entering the ring. It was Bernard King at Madison Square Garden. It was phenomenal.
well, I'm glad you got to experience that.
Did I say Jesus Christ coming out of the tomb?
You did. That was. I think it was a little bit more silent. I don't think it was. Yeah,
I gotta go because I have a thing. So sorry, Jeremiah. All right, Dame, let's do the feud. Coming out of Florida, I assume everyone just watches game shows in 3, 2, 1. This week on the Pete the Planner Show, we answer your money questions. Here's how the show works. You email us at askpete@PeteThePlanner.com. That's askpete@PeteThePlanner.com. And here's how the show works. We may or may not answer your question on the air. This week, we answer no questions other than our own. I now pass the mic to my good friend and co-host Damian Dunn while I hit the cough button. Hello, Dame. Kill 7 seconds.
Hello, Pete. Welcome back to myself and everybody else who's missed a show in the last couple of weeks. It's
good to be back with you. Thank you so much. Dame, this week on the show, Dame, being the executor of an estate is in a way a financial function, but it's so much more. So we're going to explore what is really involved, because I think many people assume they can do it if asked to do it. Some people are just put into that situation. But recently, a friend of the show was asked to be in this situation. Would you do it? And you and I and some others helped evaluate whether this person should really do it.
Sure.
So that's what we're going to do this week, and a couple other things as well. All right, Dame, as you think about being the executor of an estate, and you have done this.
Indeed.
I have to say, if I may, you are the perfect type of person to be the executor of an estate. The professional and personal qualities that you have, as we talk about these here today, you are the perfect person in the world to be an executor of an estate.
I mean, not only was I prepared to be the executor of an estate, the estate that I worked was potentially the easiest estate you could ever hope in the situation. So I kind of had everything going for me in my favor, but I'm sure you and I both know of situations that didn't go quite so well.
Okay, but and I hear you on it was being perfect and all of that, or very well done. At times, was it still complicated and difficult?
Not necessarily complicated, because it was pretty darn streamlined for my particular case, but that doesn't mean that it wasn't stressful and emotional, and it took, I'm sure we'll get into this, way more time than you anticipate it's going to. And that was for an easy case, an easy estate. So, there were times, talked to an attorney way more than I ever cared to during that, but it's just part of the situation.
The first thing that a person needs to make sure if they're asked to be, in charge of being an executive of an estate, just to sort things out, is, do they have the legal capacity to do it? And I mean, are they sane? Are they, do they have their faculties about them? The funny thing about this, Dame, is I can't imagine getting to a step where you, and I say this with respect, that you appoint an insane person to be an executor of an estate.
Sure. But, a lot of times people will create their wills, which is a major milestone for most people, just to actually get to that point where they create wills, and then they never update them. And so the person that they may have named may have, well, gotten older and had life happen to them, and they may not be in a position where they are quite as sharp as they once were, and are probably they're the person you had named at that point. And what happens at that point? Fortunately, they can say no, and hopefully there's a contingent executor named as well, or executrix. But if that's not the case, then you are going to the court, and the court's going to run your estate.
Did you use a gendered noun? It's executor or executrix?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Is that a thing?
You have a tool called Google at your hands. Yes, executor or executrix. It is a thing. People in the comments, go ahead, do Pete's heavy lifting.
Someone needed an extra day in Hawaii.
Like, if you're offering, I will gladly take you up.
The other elements that we get into immediately are crazy important, but they're tricky because you have to be deemed trustworthy and to have integrity. Dame, if asked to do this and you don't have integrity, a person without integrity would say they had integrity. And so it's sort of one of those weird things of like, does anyone self-evaluate as having no integrity?
I'm trying to figure out how that would be proven. I don't remember there being
well, it's not proven. There. It's just like, if you're self-evaluating, if you're like, hey, someone comes to you like, we be the executor of my estate, and you're going, okay, well, these are the things I consider of whether I should or shouldn't. You want to make sure but some people don't trust themselves. That's actually a thing.
Sure.
I don't feel like I have good judgment. But the integrity thing is weird.
Yeah, no, I don't think anybody's going to say that I don't have any integrity. I do. You bring up a really interesting point, though. I think there are a number of people that would look at this and say, you know what, finances ain't my thing, and I'm not good with money. I don't want to anywhere near this. So I think people would disqualify themselves on that fact. But the integrity thing is interesting.
Organizational and administrative skills. This should have people opting out left and right. I mean, if you are a mess and you can't handle complex processes, then sir, opt out.
And not only that, but you're going to have a little forensic capability as well, because you're going to have to do some digging to try and figure out. I don't know if you've got that on your list, but not everything that needs to be taken care of may be on the surface. You may have to try and find little extra information, or the estate is going to remain open for much longer as people send in claims and trying to get things tied up.
All I could think about is that little notepad that people of a certain generation keep next to their computer with all their passwords written in it. That's all I can think of. That's the forensic accounting that we get. That's interesting, Dave. Do you remember when you were a financial advisor and you would be dealing with a situation like this? Maybe a client, someone passed away, and you're like, hey, make sure to check here and check. Just the knowledge of where to check that you otherwise wouldn't know. I think that's where being an executor can be done well or poorly, but it's not knowing what you don't know.
Yeah, you're walking into, especially if it's not somebody that you've had a conversation with or much of a conversation with around this topic. If it's just a simple, hey, will you be my executor? Yes. And you don't hear anything about it until the day you become the executor, you are in for a ride.
Can I take a weird path here for a moment, sir?
Sure.
What if you and I are of sound mind? Professionally, we could deal with these things. What if you're in a situation that maybe there's no one in the family, their immediate family, that can actually execute on this? Someone opts out for some of the reasons we've said so far, and some reasons that we're about to say here in the next segment. But like, what do you do if you don't actually have a good executor? What happens?
Well, it's going to go back to the courts, and the court's going to manage the estate, the disposition of the estate at that point, and that's a longer process, and it's not one that I would recommend.
It's it's a little bit more expensive, but it's not as efficient.
Correct.
Not only from a time standpoint, but then you might find you don't get the assets out the back end the way you would otherwise wanted.
Yeah, because I mean, there's when you have an individual as an executor, there's a little bit of discretion that can go into some of those receiving of the will, the bequeathed items in the will.
Yeah.
But when there is a court involved, things are a little stickier as the wheels of justice turn over a little slower.
Bequeathed is one of the best words ever.
Absolutely.
Let's do this. Let's just think about the word bequeathed and take a break. And we'll actually do them simultaneously. Mm-hmm. When we come back, we're going to get into the time commitment of being an executor. And then we're going to get into the awkward times of being a co-executor with someone and why that's a nightmare. All of that is next right here on the Pete the Planner Show. I'm Pete the Planner. Dame, are you listening to any podcasts right now?
Not regularly. It's really hit and miss. There's no series or regular periodic news podcast that I'm religiously into on a week-to-week basis.
On my vacation last week, I started binging Smartless. It's Jason Bateman, Will Arnett, the voice of Batman, Will Arnett.
Yeah.
And Sean Hayes. Of Will and Grace fame. They are best friends, the three of them. They have they are throuple of best friends. And it's a really good show. It's a really good show. It's really good because I want you to think about your text chain with your best friends. It's your text chain with your best friends. It is hilarious, and it's just dudes ripping on each other, and I don't know if it translates across genders, but as I listen to it, I just think about my two best friends, and it makes me laugh.
Maybe I'll have to give that one a listen. That's I mean, do they come to the show with topics, or is it just like, how was your week?
Amazing question that I probably should have led with. Every week they have a surprise guest. One person is in charge of bringing the guest that week. They read a little bit of a bio. The other two guys sort of guess who it might be. And then they interview a very substantial person.
Well, that's interesting.
And so sometimes these are people they don't know that they were able to go through. And sometimes it's like their other best friends. And so it's just a bro fest. And if you enjoy, not that if you enjoy Hollywood, because that's weird, but if you enjoy like movies or cinema, they talk a lot about acting and directing and those sorts of things. So anyway, I encourage you to listen to it. I think you would enjoy it. Start with, Bill Hader from Saturday Night Live.
Sure.
Find the Bill Hader episode.
Okay.
It's a good one to start with.
Thank you for the recommendation. Also, we have a recommendation in the comments.
Boss Hog of Liberty is always fun to listen to. Okay, Jeremiah. Let's move on. In 3, 2, 1. Back on the Pete the Planner Show talking, the fun topics like when someone asks you to be the executor of their estate and what you need to consider with that. Dame, you mentioned at the top of the show, one of the biggest issues in all of this is time commitment. And I understand the concept of time and commitment. What sort of, talk to me about, quantify this. What are we talking? How many months does it take? How many hours a month? What are we talking here? You've done this.
Estates, at least back when I did it, and I'm pretty sure the law is the same. Estates have a minimum of 90 days to be open. If nothing happens, if nobody submits claims or whatever, if everything can be tied up nice and tightly, 90 days. You're going to be an executor for 90 days of an estate. During that time, you're going to be meeting with attorneys. Yay, everybody's favorite. And depending on the complexity of the estate, that's going to determine how often you are meeting with them and signing things and potentially sending checks. You're going to have meetings with family. There's going to be a lot of meetings, especially if they have no idea what was in the will. You're going to be negotiating and mediating and hoping somebody doesn't sue to keep the estate open even longer. Because Pete, I don't know if you've had the pleasure of going through this with former clients, but money and death do really horrible things to families.
Yeah, I've seen it.
I saw, especially if maybe the person who passed is in a second or third marriage at that point.
Oh, okay. Slow down. Okay. The person who passed is in a second or third marriage. Then there's additional claimants, if you will?
Well, so let's say Mrs. Advice passes on.
Gee, many Christmas, Dame.
Because I didn't want to say Mrs. Planner. I'm
Well,
taking
why don't
one
you
for the team
die?
here. Okay, let's say good point. Say I pass away.
Holy cow.
Mrs. Advice remarries because that wouldn't.
I'm going to introduce her to this guy, friend of mine. Dude, he is so much better looking than you.
I'll give you her number. She probably will.
I'm sorry. Continue on.
Anyway,
I feel like I'm interrupting you.
And when she passes, if the new beau is still around, she leaves everything to him.
So you're back to having her die again. Like you can't get this.
We had to get to this point because then if that person owns all of the stuff, then he can decide what happens to it.
And then the kids.
And if he gives it to his kids,
not your kids.
Correct.
So that's the thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's very possible when you get to a second or third marriage that people who would have normally received some assets or inheritance from their parents might not get a penny because of how marriage and wills work.
I know a situation actually that is that exact situation. And I think, again, without overstepping our bounds here, to the social side of things, I don't know what we are actually experts at, but we have some expertise in this area. Not the social side. Very infrequently do the two sets of kids get along great.
Yeah, especially if this happens later in life and they're all adults. I mean, they're they're friendly, but it's I don't know you don't know me. We've got our own lives and friends, and we never had the holiday memories together, and it is what it is. So those situations, if there are multiple marriages and multiple families involved in an estate at that point in that way, oh man, you are in for a lot of stress.
You mentioned a little bit earlier, conflict resolution skills are paramount here.
Yeah.
Because some situations, there's going to be conflict. And if that's the case and you're not good at that, then bow out. But Dame, I think what you dealt with a pretty simple situation. Any conflict? And by the way, if you want to tell me to punt on this.
No. I mean, there was none. It was, there was one heir and very minimal debt, and there was enough life insurance to cover all the debt. So it was pretty much going around checking all the boxes and making sure that everything was taken care of and everything got transferred as it was entitled as it was supposed to. And that was it. And it was still a lot of work to be able to go do that because you have to take time out of your day to go do these things. It's not like these institutions are going to be open past normal business hours for you to go and transact this business. So if you don't have time to take out of your day to go and do this, you're probably not going to be real happy that you signed up for it.
That's a really good point about the work hours there.
Yeah.
I mean, you can do some stuff online after the fact, but a lot of these institutions or whatever, they got banker's hours.
Pete, we of a beloved former colleague of ours moved for like 2 weeks to go to a different location where she was an executor and lived there for 2 weeks to try and get things tied up. And it was difficult, very difficult.
Yeah, that, you want to talk about complicated. I'm thinking back to that situation.
Yeah.
Incredibly, like, different families and generations and past relationships. Wild.
Yes.
Let's get to this as we sort of wrap this idea. And then on the next segment, we've got a little fun one. Minimum level of effort or commitment in various areas of your financial life is sort of what we're talking about. To opt out, to be like, thank you, Jimmy, but nah, I'm not doing it. And there's two risk points to that. There's number one is that someone's going to go in there and do it worse than you. Because theoretically, if you're being asked, you're higher on the list than someone else.
Yeah, sure.
Whether you should be or not. Yeah. But then the other one is, let's say there's no one else to do it, then it just goes to the court, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's just the way things work in the good old United States of America. If no individual is going to stand up, don't worry. The courts are there to take care of you.
there. I keep going back to this, and again, it's not exactly a macabre conversation, but it's an adult conversation. There's the aspects of shortly after death planning of arrangements and all of these sorts of things and getting bills taken care of.
Mm-hmm.
But this comes on the heels of that, and the emotions are still there. And then it's like, okay, now as you're sorting through this, please now have the go buy an accordion file folder from the local Walmart and become Aaron Brockovich. Like, be this detective going to solve really weird financial things.
And you have to be prepared for this, because if we all know that that finances are incredibly private for a lot of people, and if you are the executor of somebody that you knew and cared and loved very much, you may uncover some stuff that you wish you didn't.
Oh my! I do what? I didn't even think about that. I've literally, as I've been thinking about this topic all week, because we've been helping a friend.
Mm-hmm.
I've not considered that once, and you've just soured the whole idea for me.
I mean, it's possible. I mean, I'm not saying it's likely, but it's possible that you may find something that was hidden away from nearly everybody in their lives.
Jiminy Christmas. All right. So bottom line is this. If someone asks you to be an executor, think through these things we talked today. Also think, okay, well, if they don't choose you, who's it going to be? Do you trust yourself to do a better job than those other people? That's got to be a part of the factor too. And just know, if you need help, you can always lean on places like the Pizza Planner show. Actually, by the way, no one call me to be your executor. I'm not, like, there are a few people, a handful of people that by all means. Everyone else, good luck with the courts. I'm sorry, it's a little much. Dame, coming up after the break, we're going to go through various areas of our financial lives and say the bare minimum, this is what you need to be doing. And it'll be interesting. You and I can compare notes.
Yeah.
A little bit of a contest, a little bit of a game show. All that's next right here on the Pete the Planner Show. I'm Pete the Planner. Welcome Alvin to the show. Longtime listener. I remember the very unique opening with Pete's Kiddos, first time live streamer. Those were fun. I mean, I could still put them back in, but number one, my daughter is now at the age where she does not want to be part of anything like this.
None of her friends listen to the show anyway.
Well, that would be my very logical argument. But anytime I would take a picture of her on spring break, let me look at it. Nope. And I'm like, hey, I'm keeping, this is from my personal collection.
Yeah.
Just a picture of my kid. So when I'm on a plane and I can look at it and tear up and think, man, I'm glad I'm not hanging out with her. Jason has a question. I have a question that is tangentially great. Bequeath and tangentially top 10 words related to estates. What are thoughts on one kid versus multiple kids in this area? One kid is a simpler estate, but it also means looking all the burden on one person who is also grieving loss of parents. So that goes to the co-executors, right?
Yeah, I mean, you certainly can. I think there's more opportunity for things to go wrong if there are co-executors at that point, unless you're basically naming one just to not hurt feelings, but you tell them you don't want them to do anything, and somebody else will take care of I mean, that's a horrible reason to do it.
Look, here's the thing. I love my sister so much. I respect my sister. She's smarter than me, more talented than me in just about everything. I would not want to go through that process together. I don't know how she feels, and that's no offense to her. I would just want to do it myself.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe that's rude. Maybe she's going to get mad and text me bad emojis later.
She listens to the show?
No, God, no. But I'm sure someone who knows her. And okay. Dave, we do got to keep it moving, but I have to share my latest guilty pleasure that could alienate some people.
Oh, great. Let's do it.
And this sounds political, but I promise you it's actually about business fundamentals.
Okay.
You know where I'm going with this?
No, but no.
I love watching the Trump media stock crash. It is my favorite thing in the world. It is my favorite thing in the world. And it's for a couple of reasons. We actually talked about this on the show a couple of weeks ago, I think, when you were on vacation. Did you catch that part of it?
No.
My prediction was, my fear is that whenever former President Trump cashed out after the restricted period, he would leave all these supporters or
holding the
bag, and they would lose everything. That was my fear, and I just could see it happening. I knew it would happen. The good news is, where it peaked out at $79 on March 26th, $79 a share, Damon, it's now $29 a share, less than 30 days later, and it's falling about 9% today. And I watch it every day, and I love it, and it makes me happy. And the reason is because they had about $4 million of revenue, and the stock was market cap was $5 billion.
Yeah.
Which is the dumbest thing anyone has ever heard. It has nothing to do with Donald J. Trump. It has to do with, that is the dumbest thing anyone has ever heard.
I think you enjoy watching a couple stocks go down more than any other stocks go up, including your own pick for stock winner of the year.
That's weird, because I'm not a dance on the grave sort of fella. Speaking of the last segment, but it's fun.
Yeah.
Okay. And again, it's fun because a lot of people are not going to get burned because of that. Because if there is a cash crunch for good reason, bad reasons, whatever, a few months from now, and the primary shareholder has access to that liquidity, they would take that liquidity.
Sure.
And then all of the people that supported the stocks would suffer most of the shares disappearing away from the market. Well, not disappearing the market, flooding the market.
Right.
Okay, no one cares. I don't think anyone cares. In 3, 2, 1. Back on the Pete the Planner show, talking about things that people care about. Damien, you had this segment idea, and I like it. So I'm going to do my best to stay out of the way of describing what it is and let you be the captain of the ship. Before we get going too much further, real quick though, you and I both were on vacation recently, separate vacations, to your excitement. Do you listen to more yacht rock when you are on vacation than when you are not on vacation?
I know it's probably about the same. Probably about
none.
The same. Yeah, none. Exactly.
Mrs. Planner and I, when we're on vacation and we're driving in the rental car and things, we listen to yacht rock, and it really sets the vibe right.
Really?
And when we're not on vacation, we never listen to yacht rock.
What kind of rental car did you have this?
Remember my car that I had previously to the car I own now?
Yeah.
The one I just a couple months ago got rid of?
Yeah. Yeah.
That was my rental car. Which is really weird to have a rental car, which was your car, and then because you just know it. There's no unfamiliarity to it. Anyway, Dame, explain how this segment works.
Imagine, if you will, that you are trying to set a bare minimum of effort or activity in your financial life.
My high school academics. You've described my high school academics.
Exactly. So for this exercise, you are going to be envisioning somebody who is doing okay financially. They're not struggling to make ends meet from month to month. This is somebody who is got enough money to cover all the bills, put food on the table. Everything's okay there. So what we are going to do is we're going to name some different categories of personal finance. And what Pete and I are going to do is potentially, hopefully, debate what the minimum acceptable level of activity is in those categories.
It's like a little bit of a Dutch auction.
Sure.
I don't know what that means. Okay, hit the first one.
All right. Savings. Now, this is not retirement savings. This is just savings. What is the minimum amount of, and let's go with specifically emergency fund balance. What is the minimum amount of emergency fund balance that is acceptable in somebody's life?
Is quantified by dollars or time?
I will give you the flexibility to be able to define that however you want.
Minimum. And we're not talking like personal finance experts recommend. We're talking minimum.
Minimum.
$2,500.
All right. I was going to say $1,000.
Okay, because I wanted to say $1,000, but $1,000
Is not much.
not anymore. 20 years ago, you and I were saying $1,000.
Oh, we're talking minimum, absolutely bare minimum. I think you could probably skate by on most emergencies, get you out of a pinch for $1,000. Now, 2,500, obviously way more comfortable, but now we're talking about additional levels of competency or levels of preparedness.
Here's how I think about it. It's actually quite practical. Some of that $2,500 in an emergency that involves insurance would be the deductible.
Sure.
And the remainder of that $2,500 would be the incidental expenses that are a part of that.
That's true.
That's sort of a weird practical way, but it kind of works.
I'll go 1,500. Does that make you feel better?
Oh man, I have so much more confidence and faith in you as a human now. Thank you. Right. You know what, Dave? Thank you so much for acquiescing there.
I don't know what just happened.
Okay. Next.
Retirement contributions. What is the minimum amount of retirement contributions somebody should be making every year? I don't know, month, paycheck, year, however you want to define
percentages of their income. How about
that? Okay.
Well, so this is a tough one because for 30 years, 40 years now, the answer has been the match. Just hit the match. And I hate that answer. The match being like, you put in a certain amount, your employer matches that. I think that's the worst. It's the worst in the sense that it is guaranteed failure, truly guaranteed failure, unless your match is absurd. I'm going to go 10%, which is a little higher than I want it to be, but it's 10%.
I'm going to go with a match. Here's what I'm saying. You're not camping out here. You are not living at the match. But if you've got stuff going on in your life, the minimum amount that is acceptable. If your fallback position, it doesn't go any lower than the match. Okay.
I like that idea because this isn't of like I'm setting my financial life for the first time. This is I'm emergency. I'm not going any lower than the match.
Yeah.
Okay. I will acquiesce to you on this one.
Well, look at us, give and take.
A lot of bequeathing going on.
Who would have thought?
I don't think so.
All right, next. If you're in the camp of having student loans, what is the minimum? Sorry, maybe I should rephrase that. What's the maximum amount of time it should take you to pay those off?
Well, that's a good way to think of it. I'm yawning. I'm bored by this. No,
very exciting.
I did not have enough coffee. A drug, coffee, caffeine. 10 years? Or is that too aggressive? 10 years. 10 years.
I want to say 10 years, but I think we have to pay attention to the cost of college and the jam that sometimes people find themselves in, that maybe 10 years just isn't enough through the debt that's been accumulated and the actual income prospects that some people have graduating with the degrees that they've got. I don't know. I really wanted to say 10 years on this. I don't know if that sticks anymore, Pete.
Okay. Once again, I will bend your way. 15?
I would hope it could be done in 15.
Let's do this dumb thing that I used to do, but we'll alter it. You get out of school at 22, 23.
Mm-hmm.
It takes 15 years to pay off your loans. That's your strategy. But in the meantime, you also are saving a little bit of scratch.
Yeah. So
by the time you're 40, you buy your first house. Man, this is backfired. 15-year mortgage. You own your home by 55, and you've on a glide path to retirement. Does that work? Is that work?
We should talk about that because I
used to say, I'm so stupid. Here's what I used to say. The person get out of school at 22.
Yep.
Loans are paid off by 30. Immediately buy a house, a 15-year mortgage. You're debt-free, living in a home you own at 45, and then you've got the next 20 years. Like, that was dumb 15 years ago when I said it. Like, I wonder if own your home at 55 and buying a home when you're 40, whether that makes sense.
life looks so much different than it did just 15 years ago. I think a lot of financial professionals do themselves a disservice with just staying with the status quo that they've established a number of years ago and not adjusting to the reality of the situation that most people face.
You're salting a wound that has opened for me here recently.
You did it.
Right. I've got so much published material out there saying like, you should do this because I know, but like the times have changed. So if a person in modern times is reading what I wrote in 2010, Danza in the live stream notes that recently, personal finance expert, I read something the other day that suggested $1 million is a fine amount. Did you see this article? I almost sent it to you.
I didn't read all of it, but I saw the headline and got the gist of it.
$1 million is enough money for just about anybody in retirement, primarily because at 8% a year of withdrawals, it's $80,000 you can live on. That was the guidance that the article. I didn't send it to you because it was over the weekend. Dame, what?
Well, when you figure that you're going to average 12% return,
okay, so it's unbelievable how outdated some of my published advice is some 10, 15 years later. And yet, Dame, there are people doubling down on things that don't work in modern media, in newspaper articles. Why would you do that?
That person raked another one of their employees, a very well-known employee, over the coals for saying that 4% was closer to realistic.
Let's take a break and calm down. Dame, coming up after the break, biggest waste of money of the week in the news, right here on the Pete the Planner Show. I'm Pete the Planner. I looked down and we had 15 seconds left in that. I couldn't believe it. That went really fast.
And I still had more categories, ones that I think we really could have happened to have some discussion around.
I saw that article this weekend, man. I could not. I mean, I can believe it. That's the thing. It's so stupid, though. You'll be fine. $1 million, 8% withdrawals. You'll be fine. What?
I don't get it.
Why would you say that publicly?
Sequence of returns does not consider the person that is giving the advice, apparently.
Here's some math for you. Based on 10,000 market simulations, a 60-40 portfolio, taking out 8% over a 30-year period,
you won't make it.
You have a 67% chance of failure. A 77% chance of failure. I just bad math in my head. 77% chance of failure if you take an 8% withdrawal on a 60-40 portfolio. You have a 77% chance of failure. Yet in the media, a personal finance expert is telling everyone to do this. 77% chance of failure.
That's because they only espouse, to my knowledge, one way of investing, and they anticipate 12% annual returns.
I could not sleep at night.
No.
If I was noted in the media saying something that 77% of people would fail at.
Bet he listens to Yacht Rock.
I don't think so. Man, Yacht Rock is good. When the Michael McDonald cranks in, you're like, oh, yeah.
I told you that story, didn't I?
No, what?
My Michael McDonald story?
Maybe.
Is it in? It was in Hawaii on another trip.
Jiminy Christmas, Dame.
It was work. It was for work.
Whatever.
And the evening entertainment was Henry Capono, I believe, and his band. Beautiful little local band. About 2 songs in, Henry says, I've got a friend here on the island that I want to bring out to do a song or two with us. Happens to be in town. Thought you guys might enjoy seeing him. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Michael McDonald.
It would have been a great moment of my life. It would have been a great moment of my life.
He played for 2 hours.
Oh my gosh.
It was all just a front. It was just this local band as a front, and then they were his band, or at least they were his band that night. But
was it amazing?
It was ridiculous.
You've never told me that story. It's an amazing story.
It was so awesome.
Now, here's not exactly as charming of a story, but it was a surprise concert. And it's a little bougie, but the end result is I didn't enjoy it because I don't enjoy that music. I was in the Sydney Opera House, and it was a surprise concert for this thing I was at, and they were like, "Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Keith Urban," which he's from Australia,
Yeah, sure.
and he was the special guest. And he was fine. But I just didn't enjoy it because it's not my thing. And but people were losing their minds.
Sure. Yeah.
They had 2 hours of my. Oh man, Mrs. Planner's gonna love that story.
Oh, it's great. So there's somewhere. I'm sure I can't put my hands on a picture of me with Michael McDonald, and I am clearly enjoying myself.
Doing what? Say less. Like what? How are you enjoying yourself? Like photographically, you're enjoying yourself.
I had a couple.
Had enjoyed yourself.
Had a couple. Jeez,
I don't know. You said it.
You thought it.
It was a tense issue. You got to work on your tense.
I had whatever. Moving on.
Okay, let's do this. I had to go. And hold on. In 3.
Really glad Kristen's not here.
Wow.
For that conversation.
Okay, 3, 2, 1. This week's biggest waste of money of the week, right here on the Pete the Planner Show, is there we go. It is the Burn Gyro Dial Golf Watch. Burn pays tribute to the game of golf with its newest limited edition timepiece. Inspired by Scottish courses, the Gyro Dial Golf Watch features a textured green dial with matching hands at 3, 6, 9, and 12 o'clock. Miniature kinetic sculptures rotate to reveal 4 unique symbols. The first side is a 12 and 7 iron, sand wedge, and putter designed after John Burns clubs. Next is chromed golf balls, followed by Roman numerals. The final images are sports-themed numerals and the brand's signature typeface. The intricate mechanism is powered by a caliber 555 mechanical movement and housed in a 41.7 millimeter titanium case. This is limited to 24 pieces. Dame, what does this weird golf watch cost?
Too much. The dial does.
Is this interesting to you?
I love watches. I really do. And this one isn't my cup of tea. But it's titanium. I mean, I don't movement. It's going to be. I'm going to be way under $25,000.
$27,700. Kristen would have guessed like $2,500.
I wouldn't even pay $2,500 for that.
Dame, what's in the news this week?
After months of all-nighters hashing out the details, President Biden submitted a new plan to make college loans a little lighter lift for debt holders. Up to 30 million Americans could benefit from the measures announced this week. A redo of Biden's previous student loan forgiveness attempt that the Supreme Court flunked just last summer. The initiative targets older borrowers and people saddled with debt from accrued interest. If the proposal makes it past expected legal challenges, and there will be challenges, it'll cancel up to $20,000 in federal loan interest regardless of income, providing relief to millions of people whose debt exceeds the initial loan they took out. It'll also entirely forgive the debt of anyone who's been making loan payments for more than 20 years. And it'll cut loans for people who didn't receive, quote, sufficient financial value from their studies due to specific education quality issues, and people who may be eligible for loan forgiveness programs but haven't applied.
This came through the current event Slack channel here at work this week because you put it on there at 11:05 on Monday, April 8th. And my comment was, this is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
It's helpful, inexpensive because they're just forgiving interest. Yet theoretically unimpactful. I think it is a very weird idea because they're just forgiving interest in a lot of those cases that they're just sort of writing the interest off the books, but not the principal. And I don't think it's going to impact anyone's financial life. It's like smoke and mirrors.
Well, I mean, if you have all of your loans forgiven, because you've been paying for 20 years at that point, I mean, that
That part, yes.
could
Yeah,
make an absolute difference.
sure.
Or if you've been eligible for a different forgiveness program and never applied, or applied incorrectly, or whatever. I mean, that there are some issues that could make an immediate impact for individuals, but man, it's going to be a challenge to make this. First of all, it's not going to get implemented. I would be shocked if this ever sees the light of day, but it's just another approach or another attempt to try and solve the issue that is student loan debt that hangs around the neck like an albatross for hundreds of thousands of families in the country.
Appropriately or inappropriately, anytime we talk about this, we also talk about the timing of elections. We talk about particular interest groups. Here's what's weird about this one. Previously, I would have said, and I believe I did say, that the first attempt at this was targeting younger voters.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't.
No.
And so does that mean it is less political, or does it mean it's going after a different political group? I kind of want to say it's less. I don't know. Do you think that has anything to do with it?
If I had to guess, I would say it's less political. I think this is more of an approach to try and actually fix situations that are just out of hand. Honestly, if you've been paying on student loans for over 20 years, something's gone wrong. Whether that's an issue on your side or an issue of the system, who's to say? But if you're paying on student loans for that long, something needs to be addressed.
I do feel like this is fairer, and it has a better chance of getting through, but I don't think it gets through. What else is in the news?
Toilet paper and giant tubs of peanut butter might be at the top of your Costco shopping list, but the big box chain is also turning gold into gold. Pete, we've talked about this in the past, but there's some interesting data here. Costco started selling gold bars to its members last August, and Wells Fargo analysts believe that the product is now bringing in between X and X dollars a month.
I saw this article, but I didn't remember the number, but it was a lot.
$100 and $200 million a month. The retailer doesn't reveal the price of the 1 ounce bullion to non-members online, but it's estimated to be 2% above the spot price that gold trades at. And that price has soared since Costco got into the gold game. The price of gold has gone up 13% this year and reached record highs as investors pile in amid inflation worries.
You know, when I saw that headline this week, I thought, wonder if they're actually impacting the price of gold by making it readily available. And I think you just suggested they are.
I mean, who's to say how much of an influence that's had? But I mean, if you are making purchasing gold a little bit more accessible to the masses, sure, it's going to have an effect.
We all have our thoughts on gold, and
sure,
I know you do. And I just don't. I sort of opted out of having an opinion. I don't care. Like, I don't think I would own physical gold, but I can't tell you why or why not. I've opted out. It's sort of strange. Do you feel like most people have a stance on gold, or do people opt out?
I think most people who have stances on gold are very pro gold.
No one's anti-gold, right? I'm not anti-gold. I just opted out.
No, I'm just if you have a stance, you are way in on it.
Totally. You're so right. That is so right. But I know what? Here's the weird thing. I have a stance on crypto.
Wow, that's true. That's true.
But I don't have a stance on gold. I think you're right. If you have a stance on gold, you're in.
Yeah. I feel pretty good about that declaration right there.
What else is in the news? Last story, maybe?
News that'll make science and econ teachers high five. Incentivized by tax breaks and the Inflation Reduction Act, Wall Street big dogs are softening the green transition's rural impact by paying local farmers to graze their sheep around solar panels and prevent grass from growing too high. It's called solar grazing, man. And while the practice of ditching pollutant-heavy lawnmowers for sheep isn't new, it's spreading rapidly as more investors pivot to green energy. The number of sheep-mowed solar farms in the U.S. has multiplied 10 times over in the past 2 years, according to the American Solar Grazing Association. Pete,
this is great.
How much do you think a farmer gets per acre to let his sheep graze there? He's getting paid to do this.
Okay, so a farmer who is a sheep farmer,
yes,
brings his sheep to these solar farms. How much does he get paid an hour?
No, per acre.
Per acre. $250 an acre.
About $1 an acre.
Boy, I am out of touch with sheep solar mowing practices. Shame on me. Shame on my household. My family, my support system is hanging their head in shame, weeping at how inadequate my sheep mowing solar farm knowledge is.
Well,
$1 an acre.
I find that hard to believe too. I'm probably gonna have to go to the American Solar Grazing Association and look some of these numbers up. Do a little more research.
Wow. Wait, the sheer number of acres it would take to make money. That was a sheer joke.
I know, I caught it.
Okay. Maybe next week Kristen will be back.
Maybe.
I believe she will be. And then I'll be back. I think we just keep doing a show. Let's until we get to May, and then it's whatever. Dame, happy post totality. Good to be with you.
Good to be with you.
The rest of you sending good vibes, because good vibes are all that's in the budget. I'm Pete the Planner. This is the Pete the Planner Show. Man, with 5 minutes to spare.
Look at that.
So without all Kristen's yapping, we can get some work done. Lord, I don't mean that. Dame, have you done your news segment for the platform today?
I did. I do that first thing in the morning.
Oh, really?
So yeah, I put it together the night before. I check the news again in the morning to make sure that nothing broke overnight. And then I organize it, do a couple dry reads, record it, and then send it off to my best producer / editor in the world, Forrest.
It's funny. I thought all your reads were dry.
No, I mean, that's just me.
Okay. No, they're great. All right, man. Well, it was nice to talk to you. I haven't talked to you in a long time.
Yeah, we'll see you again next week.
Yeah, that's true. Our next conversation will be at 9:50 a.m. Next Friday.
Yeah.
That's why your life is so good.
It is noticeably better.
I understand. Best of luck with your life, Dame. And everyone else, stay getting money.